The wedding ring touched the altar before Rafael Montoya understood he had been betrayed. The whole town had come to watch him marry the woman he believed had finally seen his heart. Instead, they watched her shame him in front of everyone. But in the last pew, a quiet cook with flour on her sleeves knew the bride was hiding something far worse than pride. She had heard a secret spoken behind a closed door, a secret tied to money, land, and a family desperate to survive. Why did Abigail really say yes? And why did Clara finally stand up? Nobody in Silver Creek expected Rafael Montoya to cry. They had seen him ride through lightning storms, pull calves from flooded ravines, and stand between a frightened child and a runaway horse without thinking twice. They had seen him work with fever, bleed through his shirt after a fall, and carry 2 sacks of grain on one shoulder while other men complained about the heat. Rafael was not known for tears. He was known for silence. In Silver Creek, silence was the only language people allowed him to speak without laughing. He was 29 years old, a Mexican cowboy with strong hands, dark eyes, and an accent that made people turn their heads before they listened to his meaning. He had lived in Texas since he was 16, long enough to know the land, the weather, the cattle trails, and the cruel little habits of respectable people. But to many in town, Rafael was still the foreign ranch hand who spoke English carefully, slowly, as if every word had to be lifted over a wall. Some people smiled when he paused too long, some corrected him even when they understood, some repeated his words later at the saloon. Changing his voice into a joke, Rafael learned not to give them much to repeat. He kept his answers short. "Yes, sir. I can fix it. No trouble. I understand." And when he did not understand, he pretended he did. His mother had warned him about this before he left home. She had placed a small silver cross around his neck and said, "A man's worth is not measured by how easily strangers understand him. Let your actions speak when your words are not welcome." So Rafael let his actions speak. He fixed broken fences before sunrise. He calmed horses no other man could touch. He gave half his winter pay to a widow whose roof collapsed. He carried medicine 6 miles through mud for a sick boy named Thomas Bell. He repaired the steps of the little white church without charging $1, because he had once seen an old woman trip there after Sunday service. People thanked him when they needed him, then they forgot his name again. Except for Clara Bell. Clara was the ranch cook at the Whitmore place, a woman people noticed only when the coffee was late or the biscuits were burned. She was 26, plain by the town's standards, with tired eyes, flour on her sleeves, and hands rough from hot water and hard work. Most men called her the cook. Rafael called her Miss Clara. The first time he said it, she laughed. "Miss Clara? That sounds too fine for someone who smells like onions by noon." Rafael looked serious. "You work harder than all of them. A person should be called with respect." After that, Clara never forgot the way he said her name. She noticed things about him that other people ignored. He always waited until the ranch hands had eaten before taking a plate. He always thanked her, even when the stew was thin. He fed his horse before he fed himself. He never laughed when she made mistakes, reading the old newspapers she kept under the flour bin. And he never spoke badly of Abigail Whitmore. That worried Clara most of all. Abigail Whitmore was the daughter of Edward Whitmore, owner of the most admired ranch in the county. She was beautiful in a way that made people forgive her before she apologized. Golden hair, pale gloves, perfect posture, a voice soft enough to sound kind and sharp enough to cut when she wanted. For years, men had tried to court her. Then, to everyone's surprise, she accepted Rafael Montoya. The town could not stop whispering. Some said Abigail had finally seen what everyone else missed. Rafael's loyalty, his strength, his honest heart. Others said no woman like Abigail Whitmore chose a man like Rafael without a reason. Clara wondered the same thing. She had seen Abigail smile at Rafael when others were watching. She had also seen her pull her hand away when he spoke too slowly in front of guests. Once during supper, Rafael tried to tell a story about a horse he had rescued from a dry well. He paused, searching for the right word. Abigail touched his arm and whispered, "Not now." Rafael stopped speaking immediately. Nobody else at the table noticed the hurt in his face. Clara did. 2 weeks before the wedding, she found Rafael outside the kitchen after dark. He stood beneath the lantern, holding a folded paper in both hands, reading under his breath. "I promise to love you in good days and bad days." He stopped, frowned, and tried again. "In good days and in hard days." Clara leaned against the doorway. "Wedding vows?" Rafael turned quickly, embarrassed. "I did not mean to bother you. You're not bothering me." He folded the paper. "I want to say it right." Clara walked closer. "Read it." Rafael hesitated. "It is not good. Then I'll help." He looked at her for a long moment, as if deciding whether kindness was safe. Then he read, "Abigail, I am not a man of many words. My English is not perfect, I know this. But everything I say today is true. I will work for our home. I will protect you. I will honor you. I may not say every word right." He stopped. Clara waited. Rafael swallowed. "But I will never love you wrong." The words entered the night and stayed there. Clara forgot the heat of the kitchen behind her. She forgot the ache in her feet. She forgot for one dangerous second that he was practicing vows for another woman. "That line," she said quietly. "Do not change that line." Rafael looked down at the paper. You think it sounds foolish? No. I think it sounds like a man telling the truth. From that night on, Rafael came to the kitchen after supper. Clara helped him with the vows, not to make him sound like someone else, but to make sure no one could twist his meaning. She corrected a word here, softened a sentence there, and taught him where to pause. He learned quickly, not because he lacked intelligence, as the town liked to imagine, but because nobody had ever taken the time to teach him without making him feel small. One night, Clara asked, "Does Abigail know you're practicing this hard?" Rafael smiled. "She is busy. Wedding things. Has she heard the vows?" "Not yet." Clara looked down at the dough in her hands. "She should. She will hear them in church." There was so much hope in his voice that Clara did not know how to answer. The night before the wedding, the Whitmore house glowed with candles and anxiety. Ribbons hung from the staircase, silverware covered the dining table, pies cooled by the window. The family portraits had been dusted, the floors polished, and the old debts hidden behind flowers. Clara stayed late preparing food for the reception. She was carrying a tray of sugared apples past Edward Whitmore's study when she heard Abigail's voice inside. "I can't do it." Clara stopped. The study door was not fully closed. Edward Whitmore answered in a low voice. "You will do what this family needs." "You don't understand," Abigail said. Her voice trembled. For once, she did not sound proud. She seemed frightened. When he speaks, people look at me. They wait to see if I'm embarrassed. And I am. I hate that I am, but I am. Embarrassment is cheaper than bankruptcy." Clara's fingers tightened around the tray. Abigail spoke again, softer. "I don't want to be cruel to him." "Then don't be cruel. Smile, say the vows, sign the papers. Let the marriage do what it must." A long silence followed, then Abigail whispered, "And after the railroad survey is announced? After his riverland becomes valuable, after his savings are tied to the ranch, after the bank is satisfied, you will have choices." "Choice," Abigail repeated. "You are my daughter," Edward said. "You were not raised to spend your life apologizing for a husband people laugh at." Clara stepped back before the tray slipped from her hands. Her heart pounded so loudly she was afraid they would hear it. She wanted to open the door. She wanted to scream. But what would happen? A cook accusing the Whitmores on the night before the wedding? Abigail would deny it. Edward would call her jealous. The town would believe the polished man in the study over the woman with flour under her nails. So Clara said nothing. All night, she hated herself for it. The next morning, Silver Creek dressed for a wedding. The little white church filled before the bell finished ringing. Ranchers came in their best coats. Women arrived with lace gloves and hungry eyes. Boys leaned near the back, hoping for something worth laughing about. Clara stood behind the last pew, still wearing her plain dress and work apron, because there had been no time to change after arranging the reception food. Rafael stood at the altar. His dark suit had been brushed clean, though it strained a little across his shoulders. His boots were polished. His black hair was combed carefully back. The silver cross his mother had given him rested beneath his shirt, close to his heart. He looked nervous. He also looked happy. That hurt Clara most. Abigail entered late. Everyone turned. She was beautiful. There was no denying it. Her white dress moved like water. Her veil caught the light. Her face, from far away, looked calm, but Clara saw her hands. They were trembling. For one brief moment, Abigail looked at Rafael and something like guilt crossed her face. Then she saw the crowd, the bankers, the ranch wives, the young men waiting to smirk, the women who had whispered that she was marrying beneath herself. Her expression hardened. The ceremony began. The priest spoke of love, patience, humility, and the sacred promise of marriage. Rafael listened with complete attention, his brow slightly furrowed, as if every word mattered. When it was time for the vows, he unfolded the paper. A boy in the back whispered something. Another boy snickered. Rafael heard it, so did Clara. He took a breath and began. "Abigail, I am not a man of many words." His voice was low but steady. "My English is not perfect. I know this, but everything I say today is true. I have worked with my hands all my life because my hands can speak when my mouth cannot. They can build, they can protect, they can stay." The church grew quiet. Even the boys at the back stopped smiling. Rafael looked only at Abigail. "I promise to honor you. I promise to work for our home. I promise to listen when you are afraid, to stand beside you when life is hard, and to give you every good thing I can make from this world." His hand shook slightly around the paper. "I may not say every word right," he paused. Abigail lowered her eyes. "But I will never love you wrong." For one beautiful second, the church was silent. Then Abigail laughed. It was small at first, a sharp, nervous sound. But it was enough. Rafael's face changed. The priest looked confused. "Miss Whitmore?" Abigail covered her mouth, then dropped her hand as if she had decided there was no use pretending. "I'm sorry," she said. Rafael stared at her. "I can't do this," she said louder. A murmur moved through the church. Rafael lowered the paper. "Abigail," she stepped back. "I tried. I truly tried. I told myself kindness was enough. I told myself people would stop noticing. But standing here now, listening to him struggle through vows in front of everyone," she looked toward the pews, and that was the moment Rafael understood. She was not speaking to him. She was speaking to them. I cannot spend my life being laughed at because of my husband's English, Abigail said. I cannot introduce him in drawing rooms and watch people pity me. I cannot translate him to civilized company. I cannot pretend this does not shame me. A woman near the front lowered her eyes. The priest gripped his Bible but said nothing. In the third row, Mrs. Callahan, whose roof Raphael had repaired for free, pressed a hand to her mouth. Her husband reached for her arm, silently warning her not to stand. Near the back, little Thomas Bell, the boy Raphael had once carried through a storm, started to rise. His mother pulled him back down. Nobody defended Raphael. That silence was worse than laughter. Abigail removed the ring from her finger and placed it on the altar. "You are a good man," she said, and somehow those words wounded more deeply than cruelty. "But you are not the husband for a woman like me." Someone in the back laughed, only once, but it was enough to make Raphael flinch. His vows slipped from his fingers and fell to the floor. Clara saw the paper land at his boots. She saw Raphael look around the church, searching the faces of people he had helped, fed, carried, rescued, repaired, and respected. No one stood for him, so Clara did. "You should all be ashamed." Her voice cut through the room. Heads turned. Clara walked down the aisle with flour still dusted on her sleeve and smoke in the hem of her dress. She did not look important. She did not look polished. She looked like exactly what the town believed she was, the cook, but her voice did not shake. Abigail turned sharply. "Clara, this is not your place." That's what people say when they want truth to stay in the kitchen. The church went still. Clara bent and picked up Raphael's fallen vows. She held the paper carefully. "You laugh because he takes his time with English," she said, turning to the pews. "But you never laughed when his hands fixed your roofs, pulled your wagons from mud, carried your children, repaired this church, and fed your pride without asking for thanks." A few men looked down. Clara faced Abigail. "You knew what kind of man he was. You knew he was loyal. You knew he was generous. You knew he loved you honestly." Abigail's lips tightened. "Be careful." "No," Clara said. "You be careful, because the truth is standing here now and it has waited long enough." Edward Whitmore rose from the front pew. "Enough. This is a wedding, not a stage for a jealous servant." The insult hit the room hard, but Clara did not step back. "Last night, I heard you and Abigail in your study." Abigail went pale. Edward's face turned red. Clara continued. "I heard you tell her the ranch was close to bankruptcy. I heard you tell her Raphael's riverland would become valuable after the railroad survey. I heard you tell her to marry him, tie his money to your family, save the ranch, and decide later what to do with him." The church erupted. "That is a lie!" Edward shouted. Clara looked at the pews. "Maybe you will not believe me. I am only the cook, after all. That is what you will say. But look at her face. Look at his." Everyone turned to Abigail. For the first time in her life, Abigail had no perfect answer ready. Raphael looked at her. His voice was quiet. "You knew?" Abigail swallowed. "My father was desperate." "That is not what I asked." Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment they seemed real. "I was afraid," she whispered. "Afraid of losing everything. Afraid of what people would say. Afraid of waking up one day and realizing I had become someone everyone pitied." Raphael's jaw tightened. "And me?" She looked at him. "What about what you made me feel today?" Abigail had no answer. Edward pointed at Clara. "This woman is jealous. She has wanted his attention from the beginning. You would all take the word of a cook over the name of Whitmore?" No one answered. That was the worst part. Even then, with guilt written across Abigail's face, the town still hesitated. Raphael looked at Clara. "You heard this last night?" Clara's eyes filled with shame. "Yes. And you did not tell me?" Her voice broke. "I wanted to. I should have. But I knew what they would say. That I was jealous. That I was lying. That a woman like me had no right to speak against a family like them." Raphael looked at the church, then at Abigail, then at Edward. His face had changed. The hurt was still there, but something stronger stood beside it now. He picked up his hat. For a moment, everyone waited for him to shout. He did not. He placed one hand over the cross beneath his shirt. Then he said, clearly enough for every soul to hear, "I may speak slowly, but I understand shame when I see it." Abigail flinched. Raphael turned toward the aisle. "And today the shame is not mine." He walked out of the church alone. This time, nobody laughed. Outside, the sun was sharp and white. Raphael stood beside his horse, breathing like a man trying not to fall. Behind him, voices rose inside the church. Denials, whispers, accusations, defenses. The whole town was suddenly brave now that the wounded man had already left. Clara followed him out with the vow still in her hand. "Raphael." He did not turn. "I am sorry." He stared at the road. "For not telling me," she said. "For waiting until they had already hurt you." He looked at her then. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. "They would not have believed you." Clara lowered her head. "No, they did not believe you even now." That truth sat between them. Then Raphael reached for the paper. Clara gave it to him. He folded the vows once, twice. "I thought love was when someone chose you in front of people," he said. Clara looked at him. He put the paper inside his coat. "Maybe love is who stands when people turn away." Then he mounted his horse and rode out of Silver Creek. For 3 days, Raphael did not return. The town did what towns do. It talked. Some said Abigail had been cruel. Others said Clara had ruined a wedding out of envy. A few said Rafael had been foolish to believe he could marry into the Whitmore family at all, but then the bank notice appeared on the courthouse door. The Whitmore ranch was in default. By the end of the week, creditors arrived. By the next month, the railroad survey became public. The line would pass near the river road, just close enough to make Rafael's land valuable, and just far enough from the Whitmore ranch to save nothing. Then everyone understood. Clara had told the truth, but truth, in Silver Creek, arrived too late to be noble. On the fourth morning after the wedding, Clara walked to Rafael's riverland with a basket of bread, beans, coffee, and dried apples. She found him there. He was not drunk. He was not hiding. He was not lying in bed, letting grief rot him from the inside. He was building. The frame of a small cabin stood near the riverbank. Rafael worked shirt-sleeved in the sun, hammering boards with the fierce concentration of a man trying to turn pain into walls. Clara set the basket on a stump. "You forget to eat when you are hurting," she said. He wiped sweat from his forehead. "You came far." "So did you." He looked at the basket. "I can pay." "I know." "Then why bring it?" "Because food given freely tastes different." For the first time in days, Rafael almost smiled. After that, Clara came often. At first, the visits were practical. She brought food. He repaired a broken hinge on her kitchen door. She helped him read a bank notice. He helped her carry flour from the supply wagon. Then the reasons became smaller. Then they stopped needing reasons at all. They sat on the cabin porch in the evenings, watching the river catch the last light. Clara brought an old grammar book from the church schoolroom, and Rafael brought patience. "You do not have to change how you speak," she told him one night. "I know," he said. "But I want people to lose the easy weapon." That sentence stayed with her, so she helped him. Not by correcting every mistake, like the town had done, but by listening first. Rafael's English became clearer because Clara made room for the man beneath it. And Rafael taught Clara something too. Not Spanish, not only, but courage. One evening, she struggled to read a newspaper notice aloud. She stumbled over a word and stopped, embarrassed. Rafael waited. "Keep going," he said. "I sound foolish." "No," he said. "You sound like someone learning." Clara looked at him. "How do you know the difference?" "Because foolish people stop learning when pride feels uncomfortable." She laughed softly. "That sounds like something your mother would say. She was a wise woman." "Do you miss her?" "Every day." Clara looked toward the river. "My mother died when I was 12. After that, people mostly told me what needed washing." Rafael turned to her. "You were a child. I stopped being one quickly." "No," he said. "People made you work quickly. That is different." No one had ever said that to her before. By winter, Rafael had changed, not into a different man, but into a man who no longer apologized for taking up space. When someone spoke to him slowly in town, he answered calmly and fully. When men at the saloon began to imitate him, he looked at them until their laughter died. When Mrs. Callahan apologized for not standing in the church, Rafael accepted the apology, but he did not rush to comfort her. Silver Creek had expected him to be grateful for late remorse. He was not. Clara changed too. She left the Whitmore kitchen after Edward sold the ranch piece by piece. For the first time since she was 18, she did not belong to anyone's stove. One afternoon, she found Rafael studying the old feed store near the future railroad stop. The windows were cracked. The roof sagged. The sign hung by one nail. "What are you looking at?" she asked. "A ruin," he said. Clara stepped beside him. "No, a kitchen." He looked at her. She pointed through the dirty window. "There. Dining room, 6 tables, maybe 8. Upstairs, rooms for travelers, clean sheets, good coffee." No one turned away for speaking differently, dressing poorly, or arriving with dust on their boots. Rafael watched her face as she spoke. "You see all that? I see what it could be." He smiled. "Then we build it." Clara laughed once, startled. "We? You brought the vision. I bring the hammer." "And the money?" Rafael looked back at the building. Carefully. They borrowed a little, sold a little, risked almost everything. People called them foolish. That no longer frightened either of them. They worked through cold mornings and long evenings. Rafael repaired floors, walls, stairs, and windows. Clara scrubbed years of dirt from the boards, stitched curtains from flour sacks, bought second-hand plates, and painted menus in careful handwriting. At the top of the first menu, she wrote, "Everyone eats with dignity here." Rafael read it and grew quiet. "You like it?" she asked. He nodded. "I like it very much." They named the place the Silver Cross Inn, after the cross Rafael's mother had given him. The first week, only 2 travelers came. The second week, 5. By the third week, railroad men filled the tables. Cowboys came for Clara's biscuits. Widows came because Clara never charged full price when children were hungry. Immigrant workers came because Rafael greeted them at the front door instead of sending them around back. Slowly, the Silver Cross Inn became the warmest place in Silver Creek, and that was when Abigail returned. She came in spring, wearing a blue dress and a careful expression. The Whitmore ranch was gone now. Edward had moved west, bitter and nearly broke. Abigail had stayed with relatives in San Antonio, where beauty mattered less without money behind it. She found Rafael unloading sacks of flour behind the inn. For a moment, she only watched him. He stood straighter than she remembered. Not richer, not grander, freer. "Rafael," she said. He turned. "Abigail." His voice was calm. That unsettled her. I heard about the inn, she said. Our inn. Rafael replied. Abigail glanced toward the kitchen window, where Clara was laughing with a little girl over a spilled bowl of berries. Yes, Abigail said. Of course. Rafael lifted another sack. What do you need? I wanted to apologize. He stopped. Abigail's eyes softened. This time, her regret was not entirely false. She did regret something, perhaps not the cruelty, perhaps only the cost. But there was pain in her face now that had not been there before. I was weak, she said, and proud, and afraid. My father made me believe our name was worth more than other people's hearts. Rafael listened. I did care for you, she said. He looked at her, but not enough to protect me from your pride. She closed her eyes. No. The honesty surprised him. Then she opened her eyes again, and the old Abigail returned in pieces. But perhaps we could begin again. You are respected now. Things are different. Rafael looked toward the inn. Things are different because I stopped asking people like you to respect me. Abigail's mouth tightened. At that moment, Clara stepped outside carrying a ledger. She saw Abigail and stopped. For a second, the old kitchen girl returned to her body. The woman told not to speak, not to stand, not to want. Then Rafael moved beside her, not in front of her. Beside her, Abigail noticed. You cannot truly mean to marry her, she said. The words came out before she could dress them politely. Clara looked down at the ledger. Rafael's face hardened. There it is, he said softly. Abigail flushed. I didn't mean. Yes, he said. You did. Clara lifted her eyes. Abigail tried again. I only mean, you have built something now. You could have more. Rafael looked at Clara. I do. Abigail's eyes filled with angry tears. She is a cook. No, Clara said quietly. Both of them turned to her. Clara held the ledger against her chest. I was a cook. I am also a woman who built this place. I am the one who wrote the menus, hired the girls, balanced the accounts, fed the men who filled these rooms, and stood in a church when everyone else sat still. Her voice trembled, but it did not break. So say my name if you are going to insult me. Abigail stared at her. Rafael smiled. Her name is Clara Bell, he said. Abigail looked between them and finally understood. She had not lost Rafael to a prettier woman. She had lost him to a braver one. She left without another word. That evening, Rafael found Clara alone in the kitchen, pretending the onions were making her cry. He stood beside her. She is wrong, he said. Clara wiped her face quickly. I know. No. Say it like you believe it. She looked at him. He took the knife gently from her hand and set it down. Say I am not invisible. Clara tried to laugh. Rafael, say it. Her lips trembled. I am not invisible. Again, I am not invisible. He took her hands. No, you are the light in this place. Clara broke then, not because she was weak, but because someone had finally spoken to the part of her no one had bothered to see. When Rafael asked her to marry him, he did not do it in front of a crowd. He asked on the porch of the Silver Cross Inn, after the last guest had gone to bed and the kitchen lamps had gone soft in gold. I have no grand words, he said. Clara smiled through tears. You have never needed them. I have better English now. You had a good heart before. He took the folded wedding vows from his coat pocket, the same vows that had fallen at his boots in the church. I kept them, he said. Clara touched the paper. I know. I do not want to erase that day, Rafael said. It hurt. But it brought me to truth. Then he looked at her with the same honest tenderness she had once watched him give someone else. Clara Bell, will you build the rest of this life with me? She did not answer at first. She simply placed her hand over his. Yes, she whispered, with dignity. 1 year after the wedding that had humiliated him, Rafael stood again in the little white church at the end of Silver Creek. The blue doors had been repainted. The roof still held. The steps he had repaired no longer creaked. But this time, the town entered quietly. Mrs. Callahan came early and sat near the front, tears already in her eyes. The priest held his Bible with both hands. Thomas Bell, taller now, stood proudly beside his mother. Even Mr. Harlan, the banker, removed his hat before stepping through the door. There was no hunger for gossip this time. Only memory. Rafael wore the same dark suit, now altered to fit him properly. His silver cross rested openly against his chest. At the back of the church, Clara appeared in a simple white dress. No jewels, no grand veil. Just clean cotton, wildflowers, and eyes full of the life she had built with her own hands. When she walked toward him, Rafael did not see the cook. He saw the woman who had picked his vows off the floor when the world tried to bury him beneath them. The priest began. When it was time for Rafael to speak, he unfolded the old paper, then he folded it again. He did not need it anymore. I once thought love meant being chosen in front of people. He said. The church was silent. I thought if someone took my hand at the altar, that would prove I was worthy. But I was wrong. Worth is not given by a crowd, and love is not the person who stands beside you only when people approve. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Love is the person who stands when everyone else turns away. Mrs. Callahan began to cry softly. Rafael continued. Clara, you saw me when I was ashamed. You listened when my words came slowly. You never treated my accent like a wound or my silence like emptiness. You reminded me that I was not broken, only unheard. He took her hands. I promise you my work, my laughter, my patience, my Spanish, my English, my quiet days, my hard days, and every honest part of my heart. A small smile touched his face. I may not say every word right. The church held its breath. But I will never love you wrong. This time, nobody laughed. Clara pressed his hands to her lips and wept openly. And when the priest pronounced them husband and wife, the entire church stood, not because Rafael needed their approval. He did not. But because Silver Creek finally understood what it had failed to see before. A man can speak imperfectly and love faithfully. A woman can be overlooked by everyone and still change the course of a life. And sometimes, the person abandoned at the altar is not the one who loses everything. Sometimes he is the one finally set free. Months later, travelers at the Silver Cross Inn often stopped beneath the sign above the dining room door. It read, "Everyone eats with dignity here." And below it, in smaller letters painted by Clara's own hand, "Broken words can still carry a faithful heart." Rafael never corrected the sentence. He only smiled whenever he saw it, because every evening, when the kitchen lamps glowed and Clara moved through the inn like the queen of a kingdom built from flour, courage and second chances, Rafael remembered the church, the laughter, the fallen vows, and the woman who changed everything, not by rescuing him from pain, but by standing beside him until he remembered his worth, and that, he learned, was the truest kind of love.